Going from 0 to 25K a month as a real estate photographer, something that sounds impossible for so many people, and it can be a really big challenge, but it doesn't have to be if you do things right. And take that from two people who have both gotten to 25K a month and well past that. But the difference is I took years to do it and Kevin took months to do it. And so on this video, we're going to talk about some of the things that allowed us both to do that, some things we see people doing wrong, hopefully have a value packed video for you. We were talking about this earlier, actually, Kevin and I. How fast, if you had to go to a new market, so like if I dropped a pin on a map, at least in the US, Canada, Australia, I mean, maybe some areas would be a little more tough because real estate market's not there. If I threw a pin, like how fast do you think you get to 10K a month?
10K a month? I think minimum 2 months.
Yeah.
Yeah. If I really pushed and I really like, and I came with like that challenge in mind, I might be able to hit it in the first month.
Yeah.
Is that,
pretty close. You have like a pretty good, like for at least 5K your first month, right?
Well, I mean, I did 5K my first month.
Yeah, so you've already done it. Yeah. So it's like, that's it. And I wanted to start with that because it's like an annoying thing. You're like, great, Kevin can do it, right? But it's like, everybody could do it if they knew what to do. And so that's what it's about. It's knowing what to do. So like,
and I think the reason we start with that is because I talk to a lot of people and I tell them how much we're making at National Media Company. And they're like, oh, well, that works in your market. And like, we just hear it all the time. Well, in my market. And it's so that's kind of where that idea came from. It's like, well, I bet you I can move to your market and hit X amount.
Because it's about the steps. And it's like, here's the other thing too, right? So you could move to their market and do it.
Yeah.
They could also move to a better market. People have a lot of complaints, right? Oh, I can't do it in my market. You don't have to be in your market. I know it's scary to move, but that's kind of what we want to talk about in this video is like, it's not, there's a lot of things people believe that are holding them back that are not actually holding them back.
Yeah.
So we talked about, earlier today, what's the most common question you get from people like that are just starting?
Yeah. Oh my God. The most common question is what camera do you use and what are your settings?
Every time.
Who's your editor?
Who's your editor?
Is the number one like meme of a question that I get asked like on a daily basis. Who's your editor?
And that's what I'm saying. Like, it's the reason that people grow slowly. And I tell me if you disagree with this, but the reason people grow slowly is because it's not that they don't do stuff. I mean, sometimes people are a little lazy. We'll talk about that in a second. But it's like that they focus on the wrong stuff. So if you start in a new market, you're not spending a lot of time on what camera gear you have, is my guess. You're not spending a lot of time on who your editor is, right? You're picking these things, and then what are you doing? Like, what are your first steps?
Yeah, I think a lot of people, like, when they decide, okay, cool, I'm going to do this, they start diving deep into the gear, the settings, all this, and then they do all this planning before they even get started. But it's like, forget all of that. Like, you just have to figure those things out along the way. And I think just people get hung up on those little things, and you're not really going to have those answers in the beginning before you even start. Like, you have to figure that part out as you go. So I think the questions that you need to be asking yourself are like, what type of business do I want to have? Like one of the first conversations that you and I had, you asked me point blank, like, how much money do you want to make? I was like, I don't know, as much as I can. And you're like, well, that sounds great, but no, like you have to have a specific number. So I had no idea. So okay,
and that number can change.
Yeah, it can absolutely. So in the beginning, I just wanted to replace my income. I was making about $140,000 a year in California. I moved to Tennessee. I really had no idea like what good money was in Tennessee. So I said, okay, here.
You got to do this first.
So, okay, cool. That's a good starting point. That's the goal that we set. And then we hit that, like, I think month number 6. At month number 6, I'm like, well, that was a lot faster than I thought.
Now what?
And then now what? So now the goal moved to like 20 or 30. And now we're, so it's but that was the most important thing in the beginning. It was identifying how much I wanted to make and what my business looked like in the beginning. Before,
that way you can actually build it. It's like if you don't know what you're trying to build, how are you going to build it?
Before diving deep into the editors and this and settings, blah, blah, and that's like, no. You have to start with the end in mind and then break it down going backwards. Like that was.
I think people do all the small stuff first. So it's like, if you're listening and you haven't done your first shoot yet, if I'm like, I want you to do your first shoot tomorrow, that fear, you feel it, right? And so what people have a tendency to do, and maybe this is true for you, is like they're here and I think that, and if you disagree, let me know. I think everybody needs to do their first shoot as fast as humanly possible before they're ready and all that stuff. So what people do is they feel I'm not ready, and so they spend so much time trying to get ready that they never do the shoot. It's like something you want to say?
So I went the opposite way. Like people over-plan before the first shoot. I went the opposite way. I showed up to my first shoot
scared.
My hand was literally shaking. Like I cold called the agent, like, and I just had to like kind of fake it till you make it a little bit. And I showed up and I shot. It was like an 8,000 square foot house. I had no clue what I was doing. Too, and like, you told me to practice at my own house. Mess around with the camera. I skipped that. I was like, I'll figure it out there at the house. And I remember calling Kenny on your team, and I was like, Kenny, 911, emergency. I was like, help. How do I turn the camera on? How do I turn the camera on? Like, what is F9? What is that? What the F? I told him, like, what F number am I supposed to be at? But I'm there. But like, it's it's just there's value in like just figuring it out as you go.
Well, because I don't think you can actually figure it out until you do it.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the things we do in coaching a lot is like we try to, my favorite thing, and I kind of like sneak attack people with this. I'll be like, don't worry, like you need to start reaching out. You're not going to get a shoot this week. My favorite thing is when someone gets a shoot like immediately.
Yeah.
And they're like, Eli, you said I wouldn't get it. I'm like, well, now you got it. You better figure it out. Because like you need to, like what you don't want to do is you're here and you're here. You don't want to push this gap bigger. You want to bring this up because this gap is the fear stage. Here's your first shoot or your first 10 shoots. Here's where you are now. It's like what people do is they're like scared of this, so they push it out. It's like you just made the fear longer. Like we need to get the fear closer together. And so that's what I like about what you did. And that's a thing that we see a lot among people who grow quickly.
Yeah.
Is everybody has the fear. Like you said, you were literally shaking. I was shaking when I did my first shoot. Everybody's scared. And you actually spend more time scared if you push it out. It's really interesting.
Yeah.
Like if you just get it over with, it's like ripping the Band-Aid off. And
exactly. Yeah. And
just getting that first shoot is like is a big. I mean, was that a big milestone for you? Probably.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And then things just start happening. Like all the other fears and all the other like what ifs, they just kind of like those questions answer themselves. They go away.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's.
Let's talk about a couple things that I know we both agree on these, and I don't know if you have them like written down in a certain way, but like there's some things that you believe are true in this business that have helped you. That when you said them earlier, I was like 100% agree with that. So I don't know if you like which one you want to start with. We'll just kind of dive through them. We'll see where the conversation goes from there. But there's like you get committed, you do the first shoot, but then it's like then what? So what are some like character traits or anything you want to share?
Having that. Okay, so I talked to a lot of new and talking to people who are just starting out like have helped me learn a lot about myself.
Yes.
And kind of like looking back, like, oh wow, like I did some of that, or oh, I should have done this better. One of the things that I see people get hung up on is I lost my train of thought here. Let's see. Hold on. Yeah.
We could do the grit one. We could do. I'm getting. I forget what you said earlier. It was like easy when we were inside and it wasn't hot.
Yeah. The chump thing, the grit thing, the.
Yeah, I don't know.
I didn't write these down.
There's like a couple of good ones you had. Ooh, I mean any of those, dude. Let's just hit them.
All right. Well, along the way, I've kind of like because I've talked with so many people who are new, in the beginning, I would spend like an hour and a half on the phone with people, and it was like I'd walk away from the conversation like I don't know if they got any value. So I started writing these things down. Like I try to limit myself to like 20 minutes talking to these people on the phone, and I've actually learned a lot from them. Some of the things I've written down, I try to write these down in like order of like
importance.
Yeah,
like you gotta do them in this.
Like
dude, the first one I think is huge.
Well, yeah. Step one for me was burn the ships. Right. For me, I like once I decided I wanted to do this, I said forget about everything else. Like I'm all in here. And I think just having that all-in mentality is huge. And that could look different for some people. Like for me, I quit my other job, my part-time job, and I had the belief in myself. I didn't know what I was doing. I had zero experience, but I knew in my heart that this would work.
Well, and you didn't give yourself a dang other option.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
exactly. I wanted to put like my back up against the wall.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't want to give myself another choice. But that doesn't necessarily have to look like that for other people.
Yeah, I mean, the concept I like is like the burn the ships thing is like, right, if you want to take the island, you got to burn the ships, the longer quote. You have to give yourself no other option. And so one thing that I see a lot of people do wrong is they're like, I'm trying real estate photography. Like they're kind of 1 foot in. That's never going to work. So maybe you're not in a position you can quit your job from day one. That's totally fine. Most people we help, replace their income on the side first. I think that's great, but it's the mentality of like, I am going to make this happen. So when you have an extra hour, you're putting in the work. Like this is not a like, we'll see. If you approach this with a we'll see mentality, it's not going to happen. So you have to be committed, and I like that.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, burn the ships for sure, and then like that's step one. Burn the ships. Step two is clarity is power.
Yeah.
Like you have to have that goal in mind, whatever it is. I don't care if it's for me. I think we came up with like 10,000.
Yeah.
Whatever. If it takes a year, it takes a year. But we had that goal. For some people, it might be, hey, I'm going to be part time, so I want to hit 4,000 a month, 6,000 a month, whatever it is. Like set that goal, and it can always change in the future. And then step number 3 for me was do the right things for the right reasons, and money will follow.
Yes.
Like, yes, you have to have that goal in mind, but it's not about the money. You can't be chasing the dollar amount because people will know.
Because then you make short-term decisions too.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the thing.
Yeah, like have a goal and then put that off to the back and then proceed with do the right thing for the right reasons. And what that looks like to me is your paint the shed story.
Yeah.
Just being genuine, like wanting to help people, having that servant mentality, and like
you make money according to the value you provide, right? And so like what you're saying is if you do this stuff, it's like a lot of people, if you focus too much on like trying to make money, what happens is like let's say you have a client cancel right last minute. If you're trying to make money, you're like, well, I should have charged a late fee or a fee for canceling last minute, right? Yeah. So it's like that's kind of where the practical thing happens of like you make bad decisions in the short term. So like at Kevin's business, if someone cancels, he might be like, oh, but he's gonna be like, oh, totally and he gets them back on the schedule, and it's like
Absolutely.
a nice thing. So like you serve, one of our company values at my company is we love our clients. If you treat them that way, like you get so many clients because you make people happy and they refer you and your business grows, and that's how you build the kind of business that Kevin and I had, bigger businesses, right? Because we treat clients well. So anyway.
Yeah, so that's step 3, do the right things for the right reasons. And then 4 and 5 are kind of the same. Like 4 is, I'll start with 5. 5 is figure it out. Yeah. Like that was just like my own, and this is just like to myself or like to people that I jump on the phone with. I tell them like step 5 is like figure it out. You know, and it's like you have to have you got to be a little bit gritty. You got to have like that like
it's a mentality of like you're not going obstacle. I knew this was going to happen. I can't do it. It's like here we are. How are we getting over this?
Exactly.
Keep moving.
Yeah. And then number 4 is kind of like the same thing. Is don't wish it were easier. Wish you were better. And I say that a lot, but it's just it's a nice little like soundbite just to remember like, hey, you know, don't wish it were easier, wish it were better. And that could be at any point in the business, like
at every point. I think
like the Instagram method.
We were talking about that the other day. Isaiah behind the camera, we were literally talking about that, were we not? Isaiah, was he asleep? He was not asleep. He was like, yeah, we were talking about it. It's a Jim Rohn quote. It's funny because like so many people repeat stuff. Yeah. And so it's like if you go back, so it's like people say that now. Tony Robbins, I would imagine says that, but it was his mentor Jim Rohn that came up with that quote, from my understanding. Anyway, keep going.
Yeah. So don't wish it were easier, wish you were better, and that could be like with the Instagram method. I get a lot of complaints from people that are newer that I've been doing the Instagram method for 3 months. Yeah. I've sent 1,000 messages. And nothing. Yeah. It's like, okay.
Wish you were better.
And then before we tackle this, like, don't wish you were easier, wish you were better.
Yeah.
So then we
then what's required to get better.
Yeah. And so then we deep dive. There's always something that they're doing wrong. Yes. But they just.
That's what we were talking about earlier. It's like if you think about any client acquisition method could be, we call it the outbound method, which is calling people in Zillow, the Instagram method, which is our kind of like proven thing we've used for years that works really well and we help people with. But it's not. If you miss some of it, it doesn't work. So we think of it like a chain. Is like there's your profile, how it looks, and then the next link is the message you're sending and the things you're doing prior to the message, and the next link is the offer you provide. The next link is what you say when you get it. So it's like this chain that goes together. And so when people say, "Oh, I've done this and it doesn't work," which first of all, it's very rare. Kevin and I were laughing about this earlier. Most people say, "Hey, I've done the Instagram method for 3 months." Months is not an amount. It's an amount of time, but not an amount of Instagram method, right? It's like I've sent 25 messages a week for 3 months is different than I've done it for 3 months. Because when people say that, it's usually like they've sent 50 total messages in 3 months. So it's like the volume wasn't there. But let's say the volume is there. It's like you got to make sure the chain is there. So what Kevin's saying, like, don't wish it were easier, wish it were better. Like you got to fix one of those links and it will work. So anyway, hijack the conversation there. But
no, absolutely, I love it. And I get that one kind of. I should probably rearrange these, but that like flows right into this. My commandment number 8. Is the magic, this is what I just learned, and I had to sneak it in here. The magic you're looking for is in the work that you're avoiding.
Oh, dude, every time.
Oh, my God.
At every stage of the business, in my opinion.
Yeah, I was talking to Colleen from 3 Palms Media, and I sent her this list, and she's like, cool, which one of those do you need to take? And I was like, that one.
Yeah, that one.
And like, that one's evergreen. It's true in the beginning. It's true for me now, a year and a half in.
Yeah.
It's like, so.
Well, dude, yes, it's like we were talking about with the first shoot, right? It's like, that's the thing you need to do, and you're the most scared of, you got to do it, right? Then you get the first shoot, and it's like, what do you need to do next? You need to reach out to those people, call people. The point where Kevin, he's just getting past this point, but it's like, he needs to hire people. He needs to figure out, it's like, it's so easy. We're talking about how it's when you're growing your business, especially when you're 25, 30, 35K a month, it's really easy to be like, oh, like, the lazy thing is doing the long work. It's getting up, it's going to shoots, doing that stuff. The hard thing is actually hiring that person and growing it. So that's always true.
Yeah, advice. In the beginning, I thought reaching out to people on Zillow, cold call was hard. I thought the Instagram method was hard. I thought building a business and getting the first 10 clients was hard. Yeah. Now,
it's like the next stage.
No, like now shooting is so easy. Yeah. Getting new clients is so easy. Yeah. Like, to the point where like doing that for me now is like almost me being lazy.
Yes. You have to do like the next thing.
I have to do
read that again. I agree with that so much. What was
the magic? The magic you're looking for is in the work that you're avoiding.
Yeah.
And then just I was talking to another real estate media owner, and he said something like he said something that it's hilarious that when he started, he was like, did I make the right choice? Did I mess up? I spent all this money on coaching. I spent all this money on gear. What have I done? Like he actually thought like I need to like return all this, cut my losses. And fast forward a year later, he's like, oh man, it's actually so easy to get to like 10,000 a month. Like, what? Yeah. I kicked myself. Because like we should have recorded that conversation. Yeah. Because he had a lot of the same.
Everybody has
he had the exact same fears the same fears I had. Probably the same fears that you had.
100%.
So I talked to at least one new person every single day, and all the same fears that they're, or fears or roadblocks that they're having, or limiting beliefs. He had them.
Yes.
I had them.
It's the same.
And now,
everybody's business. That's why in coaching it's so funny because like we've seen this before.
Yeah.
You've seen this when you talk to somebody. It's the same. Every single time.
It's so cool.
Yeah, we were talking about earlier. I won't say his name, but it's a guy in coaching who the easier answer at any stage of your business is quit. It's always easier because in the short term, but it's worse in the long term. So I was telling you about him. He joined, and like a month into joining, starting to get some progress, but then he gets hit with this tax bill from last year, unrelated to his business. And his first thought was, I need to like get out of this. I need to refund coaching, do everything. And he wasn't able to. We were like, no, you can't do that, right? And he just hit a $16,000 a month.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, dude, imagine that. Like, you don't know it's going to play out like that, but it does most of the time if you stick with it. And it was such a good like visual of it. It's like it was so easy to be like, oh, 4K, let me like go back and I'll get out of it. It was like, man, if he would have done that, and it's not just coaching, it's any decision in your business, right? If he would have done that, he would have missed out on a 16K a month business. So
I'm not gonna lie, I had the same thing. Like you talked about like how a lot of people end up self-sabotaging.
Yeah.
You know, and like for some people it's worse than others. But if I'm being honest with myself, when I hit like the month number 6, when I think it hit like 15,000 a month.
Yeah.
I honestly did start self-sabotaging.
Yeah.
You know, it's embarrassing to admit it out loud,
Dude,
but it happens. It's common. And so it was a little bit like, it was a little bit relieving to hear that.
Yeah, that everybody does it.
But it's just funny. It's funny that everybody has the same fears in the beginning.
But they think they're special. That's the thing.
Yeah.
Did you feel like it was easier for everybody else?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I before I started, I looked at some of the other people who were like a year or two in.
Yeah.
And yeah, like deep down in me, I thought, well, it worked for them, but they had something that I didn't.
Yes.
You know.
Yeah. Their market, their background, the money they had.
And you mentioned earlier about the market thing. Like I hear a lot of people say that, well, you're in LA, you're in Nashville, you're in Florida, so of course you're doing these big numbers. But you brought up a few people to me that were doing these crazy numbers.
Hundreds of thousands a month.
We won't name the states because then I think that'll be a giveaway. But like they're in states that you would never think that was possible. I don't think it was possible.
Well, I mean, one of them is a guest coach on our team, Todd. I mean, he does a couple $100,000 a month.
Yeah.
In Ohio.
No shade to Ohio, but
it's not LA,
a huge market. It's not Miami. They're just doing crazy numbers.
It is.
So it's just a limiting belief. At the end of the day, there's so many limiting beliefs. At the beginning, in the middle, when you self-sabotage, there's all these limiting beliefs, and I guess that'll
they come true if you let them.
Yeah,
keep it too. If you
that kind of flows. Get into this one here is having. I call it. Well, I stole it from Patrick Bet-David, but he mentioned like the importance of having your running mate.
Yeah.
You know,
someone
or your coach, or having like any form of mentorship. You can't do this alone.
No.
You know, I'm sitting here saying that we're doing X amount, but there's no way I did it by myself.
Yeah.
There's no way. You know, whether it was you guys, whether it was somebody else who had a lot more experience, like there's no way I could have done.
You need a
community. What I did.
And preferably both.
Yeah.
Like, you know, at least in my business, the first 5 years I was very isolating to myself. So I didn't talk to anybody else in the industry because I was worried they were all competitors, right? So I didn't avoid them. I didn't join any sort of coaching because first of all, I was very stupid because I thought that real estate media businesses was different than any other business. And so I just didn't do it. And it's like, you really need all that. If you have all of that, it's a superpower. I think that's why because like you and Mike talk a lot, obviously. They've both grown incredible businesses in not in the same area. Like you've been around people in our community, coaching, that kind of stuff. And it's like, I think you need all of it if you want to grow the fastest. I didn't have any of it. You can do it without it. It's just slow.
Yeah. Somebody asked me the other day if coaching was worth it for me.
Yeah.
And I said, absolutely.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, what was the main thing they did for me? And just like off the top of my head, what coaching did for me was, it was hard to explain, but the way I kind of verbalized it was, coaching got me to a point in my business that on my own would have taken me at least 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
Head down, doing everything I could, trial and error. Yeah. It would have taken me at least 3 to 4 years. But coaching for me shortened that a lot, and for many reasons. But any form of mentorship, whether it's somebody who just, you know, whether it's another media company owner, just you
got to have something.
You got to.
Well, and that's like, I think what happens is people have a level of cynicism in there. So when like they hear us talking about like coaching, it's like, oh, this is like Eli pitching coaching. It doesn't matter if you're in this business. I don't care if you get coaching for somebody else. I don't care if you slam a ton of audiobooks. Like you have to do something. And I think it's a good thing to talk about at this point, which is cynicism doesn't really help you grow a business. Like it's good to be naturally a little bit a skeptic, but like when we start talking about stuff like that, people I don't know. Any thoughts on like cynicism in general? Like, I think that's a limiting beliefs thing. It's like if you're cynical, the business is going to work. It's not going to work.
Yeah.
And so I think that's something that if you notice yourself slipping into, you have to get out of that, because I don't know anybody who's a cynic who's successful.
Yeah. I have that as well, and I think that's why my running mate Mike.
Yeah.
He helps me talk myself out of that.
Yes.
Because I end up like you will have rough days.
Yes.
There are rough months and weeks, and you end up like I like to consider myself a very optimistic person, but even then I find myself having very cynical thoughts.
Yes, yes.
And there's been times in my business where I have become resentful of the business or of my clients. Yep. And it's like,
you have to have someone give you like,
you have to have somebody else kind of slap. It's weird, man. We're people are weird. So you have to have somebody that's looking, somebody with a different perspective who is dealing with the same things. Yeah. Like, hey, man, like.
But it might not be their bad day aligning with your bad day.
Exactly. You know what I mean? Yeah. So you just, I think having, like I said, Patrick Bet-David said the best, like your running mate is just so important. Whether that be your spouse or a partner or somebody else, it doesn't have to be in your same state. I mean, I bug you like on a daily basis.
We have the internet these days.
There's a Facebook group, whatever. But you have to have. It's a support system. You have to have the support system. Because that cynicism creeps in.
It'll kill you. I mean, it's like, and then you're like, well, I told you. It's like, who are you proving a point to? You know what I mean? Like,
exactly.
You're the one without a business. Let's see if I have anything else in my notes. I guess one more thing that we can kind of end on this. You didn't wait for your clients to come to you. You went and found your clients. And I would say that you were probably borderline annoying to clients.
Oh, yeah.
I think a lot of people are afraid of being that. So, like, I don't know. I know I just threw that at you, but like anything that comes to mind when I talk about being annoying, or like, I mean, because you didn't let your client, you're not just sitting there waiting.
So, and again, I have a lot of conversation with people that are newer, so it helps me like verbalize this stuff. But what people ask me, like, what did you do to get clients? Yeah. Was it the Instagram method? And I said, but it was
everything.
For me, it was everything. You can't have one without the other. For me, because like my first commandment was burn the ships. When I had that mentality, it was like, I'm not coming home until I did something to get a new client. So for me, that looked like showing up to an open house, which a lot of people will tell you not to do.
It works if you do it right.
If you do it right. If you're awkward and
you have to know your strengths. Actually, one more like side tangent on that. You have to know your strengths. There are so many different ways to get clients, right? The Instagram method, great if you're a little bit more introverted. But you can step out of your shell a little bit. You can do some outbound method, which is cold calling people on Zillow with the structure. Don't just go rip it off, or you're probably going to be not super successful unless you have a skill of cold calling, right? There's all these things that you can do, and you have to know who you are to know which one to deploy. But the best thing is, if you have the time, what I don't want you to do is do a little bit of all. I want you to do a lot of all or a lot of one. And that's like the thing you really have to, and that's what I think you did well, is like, you're like, I'm not coming home until I do this. Like you had a whatever it takes thing.
I would call people on Zillow and offer free shoots. That's how I got my first free shoot.
Free important? How do you feel about free?
100% free. A lot of people drop the ball with half off or 10%.
Dude, it doesn't work. You might as well not do it. You might as well not do it.
There's people that have no success with free even. So it's just, but 100% free. If you do it right, it's a no-brainer. If you do it right.
If you do it wrong, it's nobody's going to use it.
You could, if you do it wrong, you could pay somebody.
And they won't take you.
Exactly.
They will not take you.
But a lot of Zillow cold calls, lots of Instagram. I think for me, Instagram was showing up, looking like I was busy, letting everybody know that I was open for business and that I wanted the business. And then, door knocking, good old door knocking. I would show up to brokerages, to the offices, and just meet people, just network with people and let them know, like, hey, I just moved here, just moved here from California, and then just start talking, talk to people. Whenever I would get on the phone with an agent off of Zillow, and they were like, "No, you know what? The house is already under contract, so I don't need the photos for this one." I'd still sit there and talk to them. And I just started going into my story, like, "Oh, I just moved here from California, blah 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 blah." And oftentimes they would end up referring me to other people
before they even use you.
Before they even met me,
100%.
Just talk to people. But it's like, if you're not that, it's not like I just picked up the phone one day and just started talking. I realized that was something I wanted to do, and I realized that if I can get this right, it'll be powerful. So. Rather than just picking up the phone and going for it and learning along the way, I started deep diving YouTube on how to do cold calls.
And how to be more, the skill.
How to be more likable. And just like pick up little tips and tricks, and also recording myself. I would record myself so I could watch myself back.
Cringe.
I literally would get sick to my stomach watching myself back, but I saw myself. I'd pick up things that I didn't like, or just tweak little things in here. So it's always just constant improvement. And I think that goes back to like commandment number 5, is like to figure it out. Don't wish you were easier, wish you were better. So just that applies to a lot of areas in your business for sure. And
I think an important thing, this is kind of a good way to wrap this up, is there's different levels of what you need to do to get a result. And that's why it's so important to know your goal. If your goal is to make $4,000 a month, you don't have to do what Kevin did, right? You barely have to do anything. You just have to do enough of it, right? And so that's why it's so important to know. Maybe you're hearing this and you're going, I can't, like, you know yourself and you're like, I'm not gonna be able to do that right now. I have this responsibility, I have this. And I'd challenge you on that. I'd tell you to push harder than you think. I'm sure Kevin would the same. But also, like, that's how Kevin got to, you know, in a month period, a $50,000 business, and he'll continue to grow over the next few months in a year and a half, right? You don't need to be on that track if that's not your goal. And so that's why it's important to know, hey, if you just wanna make 5K a month, you don't have to do, I mean, how much could less have you done to make 5K? Probably a lot. You know what I mean? You could back it up a lot. And so that's why we started with the goal. Maybe your goal isn't to grow that big business. Maybe it's, like Kevin said, on the side 5K. Maybe it's 10K. You know that, and you kind of, you know, modulate the level of effort you're going to put in. Because some people hear this and they'll go, well, real estate media is not for me. And it's like, no, just maybe not at that level. You know, you have to know what that is. And then once you start doing it, then you can kind of move that goalpost a little. And so I guess as homework for this video, what do you think is a good thing for them to do? Focus on the goal first and then reverse engineer it? Or like,
absolutely, yeah. Identify what your personal life looks like and what your business looks like. You know, like, how much money do you want to make, and what does your personal life look like? And then
build that. Don't build anybody else's version.
And then just go.
Yeah.
Right. Like, instead of just sitting there and planning, like, I could have probably taken 3-4 months to get started, but I just went for it.
Yeah.
You know, and I just had that belief. I had you in my corner.
Yeah.
So I went for it. You know, and then figured it out along the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So go for it, everybody. Whatever yours is, figure it out and go for it. We'll see you in the next video.